It is interesting that regardless of where people are on the political spectrum, everyone, especially political leaders and so forth, but others as well, are claiming that their main motivation these days is to save life. So think of some examples here. Why do public officials say that people need to evacuate? It is to save life. Why they have to do the various COVID precautions? To save lives. Or why do people protesting against racial injustice? To save lives. Or standing up for children in the womb? To save lives. Or even maybe at times to take a preemptive military action to prevent something even worse from taking place, to save lives. The list goes on. There can be many, many other examples. So to be on the side of saving lives, of course, makes one the hero, makes one very righteous, saving lives. Why not? But it's also easy, therefore, to make those who are in opposition to your perspective the villain. This, of course, is probably a reflection of our current political discourse. It seems to be a given these days that those who one see as an opposition to their perspective are assigned the worst of possible motivations. After all, how can anyone be against saving lives? And sometimes people are very hysterical about this and so forth. For those against saving lives are compared to some of the worst examples in human history. Hitler and Stalin and Mao. Given all of that, the gospel must be shocking to our ears today as Jesus comes out against saving lives. This is the very heart. You see this very harsh rebuke that Jesus gives to Peter for trying to save his life. What does Jesus say to him? Get away from me. You're not thinking as God does, but as human beings do. Jesus goes on to say that there are far more important things than just this life. And just trying to save lives, in this case, Peter trying to save Jesus' life, the Lord wants to indicate that there must be other things of even greater value. To the contrary, think about this. If this life is all there is, or the best that we can expect, then one should chase everything they can in this life. Get as rich as you can. Get as powerful as you can. Get as much pleasure as you can. Find as much comfort as you can. But these same goals show the folly of human thinking. For Jesus turns this common human logic on its head. Whoever wishes to save one's life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And this, of course, is not just about the cross of Christ, but rather about our crosses as well. I think we face a grave spiritual crisis today that has been going on for some time. We have rejected the value of suffering and even sacrifice. Obviously, no one wants to suffer. I don't want to suffer. But when suffering invariably comes, for whatever reason, what do? Do we run from it? Do we try to avoid it at all costs? Contrast that attitude with Jesus, who embraces his cross. Why does Jesus do that? Why does Jesus embrace his cross? Because he wanted to suffer? No. To the contrary, we know from Scripture that he doesn't want to suffer, but he does so willingly. Why does he do it? For our sake, for you and for me. This should tell us something about suffering and how we who bear his name should approach suffering. When suffering comes our way, whether it be physical or emotional or economic or social or spiritual, instead of looking for a way around it, embrace it like Jesus embraced his cross. After all, what profit would there be for one to gain the whole world and lose oneself? That is the real folly. Do you think that the saints in heaven with God right now are jealous of some of their contemporaries from when they lived on this earth, who rejected God, lived only for themselves, and now find themselves cast out from heaven? I think not. As Catholics, we believe in the value of redemptive suffering. When we are suffering, whatever the cause, we can offer that suffering up for the good of another. The problem is that we tend not to do that. We tend to want the last word at all times. If someone isn't nice to us, then we have to denounce them to others. If someone articulates a viewpoint different from our own, then the tendency today is to shame them on social media. If something is unpleasant or something we don't like, then find some pill or some substance so we don't have to feel it. If our sufferings are only focused on ourselves, then our goal will always be just to eliminate the cause of that suffering, whatever it may be. If, however, when we suffer, our focus is on someone else who might be suffering more or might find themselves in a difficult situation, then how much easier it is for us to bear that cross, to embrace that suffering, knowing that we're offering it up for them. In fact, this is precisely what Jesus does in his cross. He thinks of us, thinks of you and me. That is how he is able to bear the cross, because he thinks of us. So whatever suffering may come our way, whether it is, something that is physical or emotional, or even something with maybe just the frustrations of being in this time with COVID and so forth, whatever the cause of that suffering, we can offer that up for others. Those around Jesus tried to get him to save himself. We see Peter doing that in the gospel today, and certainly when Jesus is saying on the cross, there's others to say, so come down and save yourself. Fortunately for our sake, Jesus rejects that. We too, for our part, must follow the example of our crucified Lord. After all, how foolish would it be to save your skin, but to lose your soul?